Okay, so it's Katie with the Philly Wellness Center. We're talking about breast cancer risk and what your doctor may not be measuring. So, most people think breast cancer risk is purely genetic, something you inherit and can't change, and that's absolutely not true. The BRCA gene mutations that cause breast cancer, hereditary breast cancer, makes up like less than 1% or less than 2%. It's really, really low, but a very, very low percentage of cancers are from genetic causes. So, I mean, the real story is much deeper. What if long before a tumor ever forms, your body is sending biochemical warning signs, silent shifts in your metabolism, detox capacity, and immune regulation that reveals a prodrome, the early stage of disease before it's visible on a scan? So this is like stage -0 or -1 or whatever. And that's where advanced functional testing, such as the bioscan, comes in. Okay, so traditional oncology focuses on detecting cancer. That's why we do mammograms or MRIs and biopsies and ultrasounds and that kind of stuff. But those tests can tell you when cancer is there. What they don't tell you is why did it happen in the first place, and whether your body's internal environment is more cancer prone, right? Or less cancer prone for that matter. So that's why your functional medicine looks at this differently. And we ask, well, what does the terrain look like? Are your cells bathed in inflammation? Is estrogen detoxifying safely or creating DNA damaging metabolites? Is your immune system catching mutations early on? Or is it exhausted and suppressed? So that's where the bioscan comes in and looks at those root level biochemical processes long before diseases ever form. So the bioscan can detect imbalances in key systems like oxidative stress and mitochondrial function. So chronic oxidative stress drives DNA mutations. Yeah, that's essentially where your cancers are coming from. Hormone metabolism. So if you have excess 4 or 16 hydroxylation of estrogen, which we talked about in separate videos, can promote proliferation and DNA damage. Your glutathione status. This is your master antioxidant and detoxifier, and methylation capacity, which is necessary. Basically, the methylation system silences oncogenes. That's one of its huge jobs, is to just silence tumor genes from expressing themselves. And when you have your homocysteine levels are really, really high, your methylation is down, and you don't have as much support or watch over by the methylation system. So the methylation will also clear out reactive estrogens. But these are biochemical prodromes of breast cancer, shifts that can be corrected before disease develops. Because we know if you go down that pathway, we know where that path is going. It doesn't mean that 100% of the time this is going to happen, but you're very, very high risk for developing cancer when these things are misaligned. Genetics will matter, of course, they'll always matter. So if you have COMT deletion or you have glutathione deletion, you have a BRCA1 mutation, those are going to be things that are going to be problematic. But if you have a fully functioning COMT, glutathione, BRCA genes, these all help regulate, they help regulate how your body handles estrogen and fix DNA damage. That's their role. So COMT neutralizes catechol estrogens from the 4 pathway. GST manages glutathione binding and detox, and BRCA1 repairs damaged DNA. So contrary to what you might think, despite the fact that BRCA stands for breast cancer, you want that gene. You want a fully functioning BRCA gene, because what does it do? It has nothing to do with breast cancer. What it does is it repairs DNA. That's all it does. But the genes are only blueprints. What matters is how those genes are expressed. And that's where lifestyle, environment, and targeted therapies come in. So I mean, I would never tell a patient to avoid surgery, chemo, radiation. All of those things are necessary. And I have no idea what I would do if I were in that situation. I don't want to know. I don't want to have to think about those things. So I don't envy anybody that needs to make those choices. But I believe those tools save lives. I believe they remove the threat that's already formed. But I would totally respect what anybody did in this case, because when you do have cancer, you're looking at a huge threat. But the problem is that chemo, radiation, and surgery don't actually change your biochemical risk profile. And that's where, I come into this picture because you can do surgery, you can do chemo, you can do radiation, but what's changed? Why did the cancer happen in the first place, right? And if less than 1% are genetic, it's probably not a genetic issue. And even if you do have genetics that predispose you to breast cancer, uh, the genetics get expressed in certain environments, in certain contexts. So what was it that caused this to happen? Because it's not a virus, it's not something that gets injected. Cancer is an opportunistic condition that takes advantage of a biochemical state, or what we call a prodrome. So you need to look at methylation, glutathione, mitochondrial damage, immune exhaustion. So if those things are affected still, reoccurrence rates are going to remain high because you haven't done anything to change why breast cancer occurred in the first place. So the real work begins after treatment, and that's when you rebuild the terrain that made the cancer possible in the first place. So what can you do to create a body that is inhospitable to cancer, whether you have cancer, you don't have cancer, you don't want cancer? What is it that you can do to make your biochemistry inhospitable to cancer? So there's a lot of things actually. So one, intermittent fasting and time-restricted eating reduces metabolic inflammation and encourages cellular cleanup. Now the body is either in a fed state or a fasting state, and when it's in a fed state, it's processing glucose. When it's in a fasting state, it's doing repair things. So you want the body to be in the repair and cleanup phase as much as possible. So we push for at least a 16-8 intermittent fasting and time restricted eating to a much shorter window. And if you can do something like that, you're already ahead of the curve. Strength training will improve your hormone balance, insulin sensitivity, and mitochondrial density. AMPK activators like berberine, which is a supplement, and fasting promotes autophagy and reduce insulin-driven growth signaling. Rapamycin modulates mTOR signaling, which slows cellular aging and abnormal proliferation. So if somebody does have cancer or is recovering from cancer, rapamycin is typically a medication that will start to decrease that abnormal proliferation. Thymosin alpha-1 will boost your immune system, helping your body to detect and destroy abnormal cells. So you can do this pre-cancer, post-cancer, during cancer. And EBU is something that I find very, very powerful. And it's great for cleaning up oxidative stress, which is the #1 cause of cancers to begin with, right? So it'll reduce inflammation, improve oxygen delivery, and reset redox balance. So cancer doesn't appear out of nowhere. It emerges when the body's detoxification, repair, and immune system falter, and often after years, right? So our bioscan and genetic testing don't diagnose cancer, but they reveal a biochemical environment that predicts it. And the prediction rate is extremely high. You're looking at 93% prediction rate if you maintain a certain biochemical prodrome, your 93% chance of this developing. So it's pretty powerful stuff. And by acting early through oxygenation, immune support, metabolic regulation, and strength, we can shift that environment back towards health. The future of cancer prevention isn't about detection, it's terrain correction. Because when you fix the terrain, the disease has nowhere to go. So we want to heal your terrain and rebuild your resilience.